Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This live was not a screw up. It does exist. And I saw AJ13's comment there or AGI3's comment. So thank you for those of you who are tuning in. I don't expect to have a whole lot of people tuning in into this live stream. But as the title suggests, I am about to embark on my yearly journey of doing my taxes. And simply put, it's something that I procrastinate on every year. And the month of March represents my data collection period. So that explains a lot why I did not put out a lot of content in March, because just going through all the data collection, not only on the eBay side, but you have all the other platforms. You have transactions that I've done on PayPal. I do stuff offline where I broker deals that we're talking truckloads and stuff, cases upon cases of various things. So it's been a grueling task, and I just thought I'd get on here and before I plug it all in to see what I really owe, because we can kind of guess in our minds, right, what we owe. For me, it's about getting here and doing the work and just get it over with. I procrastinate to the point where it's hanging over my head. And I don't know why I do this to myself. It doesn't have to be this way, but I'm just that way when it comes to how much money am I going to send Uncle Sam. So, yep, AJ I3, I'm here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. And we have Jenna. She's entertaining family. So
who's here?
Well, there's a few folks, but we're just dropping in and seeing who shows up. I don't expect a whole lot of people. Kind of giving people time to roll in here.
You know what? I'm done with Scott. We can't be friends anymore.
Yeah. The whole moist conversation, right?
I had to tell Megan about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to go.
All right.
Bye,
go entertain. Thank you. So we just got through doing the whole Benihana thing. What a disaster. The food came out good, by the way, but family, Jenna's sister's over, kids, and they wanted me to make Benihana on the Blackstone. Well, it's not a good idea when you have 20 to 30 mile an hour winds with 50 mile an hour gusts, and you have a tree that hangs overhead and drops little pieces of the tree or twigs and stuff. So I did something you're not supposed to do, but I was not going to ruin the meal. We brought it in the house. Does that sound bad? That sounds bad. We put it right next to the slider, and it worked. It wasn't. They wanted me to do it that way because I'm like, let's order pizza at this point. But they wanted it. It turned out great. And do not try that at home. I'm not telling you guys to do that. It's sort of like deep frying a turkey inside your house on Thanksgiving. It's not a good idea. Don't do it. I'd rather you attempt to do your taxes by yourself than to try to pull that off. But we pulled it off. We made it work. And I said, you know what? I planned on doing a video yesterday. I just didn't get to it. Still getting the last remnants of data collection. That has to be the most stressful thing, part of this whole tax issue, is making sure that you get all of your transactions. And it used to be, we had GoDaddy, and GoDaddy did a decent job of collecting the data. But I got to tell you, even GoDaddy, you had to go through it and check because it counted it twice sometimes, and it just caused a nightmare. You don't want double numbers. You want to make sure all your numbers are on point. So I have my spreadsheet, my trusty spreadsheet, and we have a different tab for expenses, the various type of expenses, cost of goods, the money that I'm bringing in, that kind of thing as well. So I only have a kind of a preliminary idea. It's probably not as bad as what I think it's going to be. It never really is. I think we always kind of wonder to ourselves, oh boy, how much am I going to have to pay this year, right? So we'll find out tonight. So if I don't show up on Monday, on Monday's live, you guys know what may have happened. We have Des Electric says, I literally just scheduled to do my taxes, LOL. And honestly, you guys might be asking yourself, why are you doing your own taxes? And for me, it's just something I'm used to. I've been doing it all my life. And when we've been doing eBay for a long time, and implementing the data from eBay, filing that, it's just like second nature to me. Measuring rooms. How about that? Going through and measuring all the rooms that we use exclusively for the business, because now again, look at the banner down below. I'm not a CPA. I don't pretend to be. I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. Nothing like that. I'm simply just here having a conversation about the task at hand. And it does involve, for me, measuring rooms, measuring my garage that I use exclusively for the business, measuring this room because I don't do anything but eBay and YouTube, and that's two of my income sources. And then we last year didn't have the second bedroom that we now use as a shipping room exclusively, and that was Tyler's room. And now that he's not here, we got another room to add in. And you basically take a percentage of your square footage that you're using for the business in your home. This is if you're in a home. And you're taking a percentage of that, and your bills, your electricity, your internet, all those things, you're taking a percentage, and it's a deduction. It's like your cost of goods is a deduction from your gross revenues. And so that for me is excellent. Now, I got to say, I've had a lot more mileage that I've been able to report. And we're talking like almost $4,000, about 6,000 miles. And I drive across town it's like a 45-mile round trip. I do that once to 2 times a week, another 12 miles round trip to this one, at least 2 times a week, to another place that I get my stuff at. And surprisingly, it adds up. Now you add in a few trips to California. Sometimes we go to California. We do yard sales out there. And guys, this stuff all adds up. And I use Everlance to track. I don't have to do anything. I just have it on in the background, and it tracks everywhere I go. I go swipe left for personal, swipe right for business. And it's that simple. Someone like Scott Bearded Picker, I'm sure he has something like Everlance, but I think you pay like $60 a year. But, if you're trying to keep track of this on your own, man, you better be on top of it, because there's going to be trips you're going to forget to write down, and you're going to probably lose money by not keeping track as compared to, doing it this way. So a lot of things. You can ask questions about taxes, but take it with a grain of salt, because this is just me coming on here talking about what I'm planning on doing, which is kind of like 80% of the content I put out anyway. It's never really solid advice for everyone. We have Kevin Hawthorne. Thanks for being here, Kevin. Spam Banshee's with us. I'm sure Primo's with us. Hope you guys are feeling better. I know that Primo was doing something with his diet plan. It wasn't working out for him. We're trying that 16/8 thing, that intermittent fasting, where, after 6 o'clock at night, no eating, and 10 o'clock in the morning is kind of the go light. So hopefully you guys are doing okay. J and S resellers. I always get my taxes done by February 1st just to get them out of the way. And, you're probably right. It's less painful, rip the Band-Aid type of thing. You don't have to think about it. And every year, I swear to you, every year I do this to myself, and I'm wondering, oh no, it's going to be X amount. And it's always a little less than that. Tommy says, Kevin, I'm nervous. You aren't in Lakeland? I don't know. Where is Kevin at? Kevin, where are you at, man? Hopefully you're in Florida and not out and about. Jerry Johnson says, hi, John and Jenna. Thank you for being here, Jerry. And Pierce, I found her a t-shirt, LMAO. I think you showed that to me. Kevin says, Channel 10 will do a story on me at the Citrus Connection bus terminal in Lakeland, Florida. This is my 20th year there. I think you're, I did see your video before, Kevin. I think you're a volunteer out there, and good on you for doing that. You know, not a lot of people take time out of their day to contribute to their community. So good job out there, Kevin. Keep doing the work that people unfortunately don't want to do. I commend you for that. John Worldwide Weber, taxes ain't easy. It's not hard. I mean, I use TurboTax. It's as easy as that. I could tell you the 2 times that I've had problems with doing taxes with TurboTax, or any software for that matter, is when we moved. If you move like halfway, like exactly halfway in the middle of the year, well, guess what? You have 2 different layouts. If you're trying to write off your square footage, so you have all your utilities and everything, the amount you pay for mortgage or rent. Well, that's a tricky one, and TurboTax isn't really set up to do that, and it throws off your Schedule C. It doesn't work, and we had to do a workaround and got it to work. And I had to involve a rep from TurboTax. This year, I don't have to worry about that because we've been here for a couple of years now. Beers is going to watch Bigfoot. He is a tax evader. And you know, it's funny. I was watching this program on YouTube. Someone was talking about how unless you're a citizen of Washington, D.C., taxes are voluntary. Now, that might be BS, but I ain't taking a chance. I'm not trying to run this business behind a 10 by 10 sale. So it's a little hard to source when you're incapacitated. Mike Seller says, hello, John and FAE family. Thank you for being here. I'm sure there's some lives that are happening right now. I don't know whose live is on Thursday, and I certainly apologize for interrupting that live. I just thought, you know what, let me get on here. We have 46 people. I don't expect to have a lot more than that because there's a lot of folks that are used to our regular schedule time. And I'm also doing this for the fact that I'm not going to be here tomorrow to do the live at 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. So we're going to do the next live on Monday on the Flippin' Ain't Easy channel. The podcast, the Profit Playbook podcast, and that still doesn't roll off the tongue very well, but it is what it is. We have a special guest. I think you guys are going to enjoy watching. It is scheduled to run at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. No, not tomorrow morning. I apologize. Saturday morning, and 11 a.m. Eastern. So be sure that you're tuning in. You do not want to miss that episode. It's going to be really good. It's going to be a banger. I'll just put it that way. J&S Resellers, are you also counting your damages as well? I.e. if you drop a Snoopy glass? Well, okay. So my damages, my cost of goods. So whether I sell the item or throw it in the trash, it's still a cost of good that I keep track of. The only time that you unwind that, let's say I spent $10 for this thing, if you're able to return it, let's say there's a problem with it. There's some places that I deal with out here. They give us 7 days to evaluate the item, change your mind. We can say there's a problem with the item, no questions asked. And it's liquidation. They let us bring it back. That's good. And then, of course, you unwind that. So it's getting in and going through all the interactions, all the transactions, and putting it all in the spreadsheet. Now, you don't have to, at least the way I do taxes, I don't know the exact name for it, but I'm not accounting for every item I buy and every transaction that I make. Is it like a cash basis or something where I'm reporting, here's how much I buy in goods throughout the year, and including broken pieces. And then I go in and I'm counting how much did I sell on these individual platforms. And that's, I think if you have in excess of $1 million in revenues, then you actually have to do it a different way where you're kind of accounting for every little piece. Primo says it's easy being green. Yes, we want green. We don't want to give it away though. Drummer, been a CPA ain't easy. I don't want to be a CPA. I don't mind doing the numbers. I don't mind crunching numbers. There's something about sitting in front of my spreadsheet and just going through the accounts, putting data in, just basic data entry. It's not that big of a deal. It's just time consuming, and it's taken me away from not only the business, but doing more videos on the channel. Yes, tracking miles is huge. You guys, if there's any advice I can give you guys out there, if you go to yard sales, if you go to, unless people are bringing stuff to your house and you never have to drive anywhere, which is like, what, 1% of resellers? I mean, some of you guys got to go to the post office. Some of you guys go to UPS. Anytime you drive anywhere for the business, you got to track that as a business expense and or keep the mileage, because you get like 67 cents a mile. It adds up. It used to be like 50 cents a mile. And someone, I think Archie Biscuit Butt, told me that that was going to be going up at some point. So for me, it's a win-win. Rob something says, GoDaddy was pretty good. I built my own versus minus the real-time pools, API connection, eBay. Instead, I pull the monthly transaction report. Works really well. There is another company out there, and I owe them an apology because they contacted me last year. That is Seller Ledger, and they were trying to design one like GoDaddy. And I just like, okay, I just didn't have the time at the time. They contacted me early in the year, and they're like, hey, are you going to even try it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll try it at some point, but I haven't yet. It's just been so busy, just so many things going on. But they're not sponsoring this channel in any way, shape, or form. But if you want something that's like GoDaddy bookkeeping, where you can link all your external accounts, your bank account, credit cards, hopefully not using credit cards for sourcing, but all the things that you would use with your business, PayPal maybe, it does take that data and it sorts it all out for you. J&S Resellers, yep, recording mileage chops that legalized theft down a lot. Yes, you got to do it, guys. If you aren't doing it and you're just handing off what I bought it for and what I made, there's a lot you're leaving on the table. And I'm sure if you have a CPA, they're going to say, hey, where's the mileage? I mean, you got to be reporting that. Beard does use Everlance. Sadistic says taxes. I'll just pull a John McAfee and split to Central America. You know, there are people who don't file, who don't pay taxes, don't know how they do it. You know, if it works for them, I guess good on them. But I just can't imagine putting myself in that position. I just can't. It's looking over your shoulder. Can't do that. Mr. Sadie says, hello, John. Can I claim beer under office supplies? I don't think so. I don't think so. Biff Boffo says, I input my spreadsheet daily, so all the data is there, but I still wait until April to file. Now, that's where I make my mistake. Last year in January, I have a spreadsheet where I haven't maintained it all. I've been, I want to call it busy, but I mean, is it busy? Is it lazy? Is it, you know, we're talking, I know Beer was talking on his Wednesday Live about developing processes, right? And I've gotten away from that process where I have my inventory on tab 1 of my spreadsheet. And once I've listed it, I'll put a yes next to list. It moves it to another tab through a macro. And then once it's listed, then I add the pertinent information. Once it's sold, I'll hit yes on that tab. It moves it to my sold, and it figures out the eBay fees, figures out, you know, all the different things, how much I made on the item. I have to put the shipping in there and all that. And it keeps track of my, in a separate tab, a sort of a chart when I'm making profit. It's really good, but it's only as good as your usage of it. And for me, it's easier, and I should be doing this every day. I mean, whether I sell one item, no items, 10 items, 15 items a day, take the time at the end of the day to input that information into that spreadsheet, along with the ones that I list. Take maybe a half an hour. It's no different than having your own brick and mortar store, restaurant. What do you do at the end of the night when you close the store? You cash out the registers, and you do your bookkeeping for the night, and you then leave that for the next day. So shame on me for not doing that. Good for you, Biff, for doing it. And it's something that I need to actually do. It's going to not only, I don't know how much it's going to help me with my taxes, but it's going to, and I found that when I was doing it for the solid 3 or 4 months, it was giving me a really good idea as to what I was making, what my margins were, what, expenses that I had out, looking at, my cost of being more in tune with my expenses. You're typing that stuff in, you're like, wow, I paid $10 for that. Maybe not next time. Right. So you're kind of reviewing your business as you're doing the data entry. I would really like to be able to get a macro, and I'm not very good at Excel beyond just the basics and making a basic macro where I could have it pull data. I don't know if that's even possible to maybe create your own API that kind of links into eBay and pulls data into the spreadsheet. Those of you guys who are a lot smarter than I, let me know if it's even possible to do. Maybe you need a third-party program for that. Roman says, thank God it's Friday. Hello, everyone. Yes. And looking forward to not this weekend, but next weekend. I'll be on his channel, on Roman's channel, on his live. So that's going to be pretty fun. I just got to know in my mind that it's going to be a marathon event, and I will have to just get very comfortable. Mr. Sadie says, we're going to a tax lady tomorrow night. Wish me luck. Well, good luck. Larry, good luck. Hopefully you can save some money. CPAs are really good about finding things that maybe you didn't think about. Well, how much did you spend on this? Or did you do any of that? Right. I know these tax programs are very good about that. They ask you 1,000 questions and they lead you along. And I don't know. I think most people, while they use CPAs, I think most people really probably sell themselves short. They can do these taxes on their own if they wanted to. Again, I wouldn't try it at home. Look at the little banner at the bottom here. I'm not a CPA. I'm just kind of talking out loud. Waiting to Shine says, hit that like button, and within 24 hours, you'll find one extra write-off that you didn't know you're entitled to. Yes, exactly. Tommy says, LOL, definitely BS, just like you don't have to get out of the car when a cap orders it. Sovereign citizens, morons are hilarious. We got Ping G with us. Thanks for being here, Ping. What a surprise. Yes. I thought, you know what? Why don't you just get on here? I was actually going to do it like 3 hours ago. And I found myself wondering, well, am I going to be able to pull this off? I still got to go across town to pick up some merchandise. And then I got to come home and play Benihana Chef. And I just don't want, I have a tendency, I do this a lot, where I put a lot on my plate at once and I tend to overwhelm myself. And I'm like, why did you do this? So I'm glad I didn't do that. I had an invoice that I had to send that kind of was thrown in my lap about, let's say, 2 hours ago. And I'm glad that I didn't have all that. It was a time sensitive invoice. So if I would have been live, it would have just been a mess. So hopefully I'm not messing myself up by going live right now, but I really don't think so. Mr. Sadie, Tommy, crushing my dreams. Goanna says, unless I'm mistaken, you cannot expense cost of goods on items that have not sold. So you're right. So the way this works is, if you have, say, $20,000 in cost of goods and you have 5,000 that have not sold, they're sitting in your store or they haven't even been listed. Hopefully you guys are listing your merchandise. This is merchandise that you can't include. In fact, you include it, but the tax program I use will say, how much do you have as of January 1st? How much inventory was unsold? and you have to put that number there. And internally, it says, okay, 5,000 to 20,000. I'm just throwing raw numbers out there. It'll give you credit for having 15,000 in cost of goods. At least that's what TurboTax does. Sadistic says, I thought cost of goods is only cost of goods sold. If you don't sell the item that you can't claim it. I need a CPA. So again, that's kind of clears that up. You're declaring how much of the unsold cost of goods, and that's calculated against the number you first put in. Anytime Picker says Lakeland, Florida will be the best location to view the solar eclipse. I'm not sure. I think that's up where you're at, over in Cleveland. I think that's the best time to view it. I think Monday is going to be just weird, right? Maybe we need to call Monday the solar eclipse live stream. Biff Boffo says, I believe it's cash versus accrual in terms of accounting methods. Yeah. I think cash is, I spent $20,000 in cost of goods. Again, that's just a raw number. I spent a lot more than that. The accruing, I think, is your individual breakdown. And maybe I have that part wrong, but I think you have to have at least $1 million in gross revenue where you're required to use that. So like your larger companies and brick and mortars and or larger sellers are required to do it a little bit differently. And those folks are going to have CPAs. They're not going to, if I ever grow my business, and I call it a business, let's be real, it's just a job we've created for ourselves. We try to treat it like a business. And of course, when you're filing your taxes, Uncle Sam looks at it like a business. So for me, it's just trying to approach it that way and to do all the things that I'm supposed to do, because the last thing I want is to have an audit, that type of thing. And I do want to grow my business to where I'm using the accrual method. If I'm at that point where I need a CPA, I'm going to be happy. Maybe $500,000 a year gross. For me, I'm running about a 50-ish, 45, 50% margin because I buy low. I think at some point it'll grow to a place where I'd have to use a CPA just to get as many deductions as I can from my tax bill. That's why you hear a lot of these rich business people and people saying, hey, they don't pay their fair share. Well, they're just using loopholes, using loopholes to minimize their tax bill. And I think as a reseller running a business, whether it's part-time or full-time, we got to find ways within the law to get our tax bill as low as possible. Goannis, this is Tommy saying, Goannis, that's 1,000% wrong. There's two ways to do taxes, and doing total in versus total out for outweighs doing accrual inventory. Yeah, the cash method versus the accrual. I'm not so sure about accrual. Maybe Tommy makes enough, but I have not bothered with that yet. I haven't had to do that. Tommy, imagine people with huge stores that sell very little of it doing accrual. Ouch. John Worldwide Weber uses accrual, and I'm sure I'm not saying that word correctly, but you guys know me. Roman says, Tommy, they just write off anything that was stolen. That is a cost of goods. Now, I'm certain that, look, this store at a $5 item, whether it broke or was stolen, they're trying to get $100 for it. Bad example, but I'm just going to use that example. They're into it for $5. They're trying to sell it for $100. They're only able to write off the $5. That's why, it's almost like selling an item to a bad buyer, and they destroy it. They open a item not as described, and you get a brick back. Well, you're expecting $100. You're into it for $5. Well, you only lost $5. I mean, you lost the hope of getting $100 because of the bad buyer, but you really only lost the $5. Biff says, if I did accrual on 40,000 items, that's all I'd be doing. Yeah, but at some point, I believe you have to when you make enough. Goanna says, could you then just buy a load of inventory and pay no tax? Doesn't make sense. So again, you're taxed. Okay, you're taxed on the the net of between what you've sold and all your deductions. That's what you're taxed on. And so if you have a load of goods and you haven't sold any, well, you can't count that. That money is those goods are carrying over to the next year. And so that $5,000 load, maybe just sitting in the back there, you haven't listed it yet at year's end. Well, you may have put in $20,000 for the year for goods, but that $5,000's got to be deducted from it. Let's see. We got some folks here. Goanna's actually, by the way, don't take tax advice from us here. Big brother is lurking. Yeah, that's why I'm throwing out generic numbers. I mean, I don't even really, I kind of know my numbers by doing the spreadsheet, but I'm not going to throw out real numbers here. I'm just throwing out generic numbers because you guys that watch the channel, you kind of know what I make anyway on eBay, but you really don't know, what I do. And I would never expect a YouTuber to, I try to be transparent what we do on eBay because it gives the credibility, to me, in my opinion, if you have someone on here saying, hey, I do these things and it works for me. And then you're trying to get, advice about, well, okay, what are you making? And that person's not giving out that information. They're not being transparent about what they're making. You got to take that advice with a grain of salt because, the last thing you want to do is be a $75,000 gross seller, which is pretty decent. And then you're trying to take advice from someone who can't make $25,000 in a year. And I'm not disparaging the numbers, but I really think that people that make these videos, they really need to have the data to back up. And that to me is the sales. Whether you have a huge store, small store, you really need to be willing to share the data, share your success. Because if you're struggling on eBay, why are you giving advice? And this is a question I had for myself back in 2022. I mean, to be honest with you, we were doing great. 2019, 20, 21 was kind of okay. 2022 was horrible. And I really felt bad about even keeping the channel going because I kind of felt like a fraud, even though I was fighting through it, trying to make eBay and reselling work. But at the end of the day, I was doing Uber Eats and supplementing my eBay income and didn't feel really good about myself. And I think sometimes we have to be at that place to really appreciate how far we've come. And I a year and a half later, almost a year, actually a year and 3 months later from that time in my life, I really am proud of how far we've come just with our business. But I do look at how much I'm leaving on the table still. So hopefully 2024, I can really kind of ramp things up a little bit. Honor Squaw says, what in the heck? Howdy. Yeah, we just jumped on here to do a live, mainly because I'm not doing one tomorrow. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to torment myself here in about 20 minutes with the actual act of doing my taxes. So why not? Jerry Johnson says, sometimes it just boils down to procrastination. And that's just it. It's like dread, right? It's dread. For me, it's like I got money in my account, right? And I know that I pay my bills like a certain day of the month. I could pay them 5 days early, but I just put it off in my mind. It's like I'm paying it on that day. I don't know why. I just, the way I do it, I might have plenty of money to pay the bills, but I just procrastinate, fine. My account's going to be, short $2,000 after I pay my bills, but I'm still going to have money in my account. So why are you procrastinating? It's just weird. I'm weird that way with money. Sometimes I don't even want to look at my accounts because I'm not in my mind. I'm not going to see what I want to see. Does that make sense? Goanna says, I keep track of every item purchased and only expense cost of goods for actual sales. Now that would be very hard to keep track of. And the more you grow, the more you scale, the harder it's going to be. I guess case in point, that spreadsheet I was talking about, something like that, I could go through. I can have a running total of all my, cost of goods for everything I've sold. I guess I could do it that way. But for me, it's going through, looking at my store at the start of the year and figuring out, because I have on my SKU for each listing what I have the cost of goods for that listing, going through and calculating that, and that's what my unsold cost of goods is, and then that's subtracted from the actual expense of the cost of goods. John Worldwide Weber says, I totally use credit cards with cash back for inventory purchases and totally pay it off every month. Better interest than a bank. So you gotta be really disciplined though. And if you can pull that off, then you're going to make some money off of that interest. And I believe, because I don't do it, that interest is going to be something that's you have to report. So hold on real quick. We have company over and they're getting a little loud. I don't know if you guys can hear the kids out there, but I told them I'm going live. So let's see. Tommy says you're allowed to switch one time. I think Goanna's cash-based accounting usually works out way better for us. I agree with that statement. And from what I understand, you actually have to do one or the other. And I think you have to justify why you're changing over. Viv says, I like my daily spreadsheet because I have it set up to calculate my ROI in real time. And you are doing it exactly right. And I got to tell you that I'm going to get back to that. It's sort of like I procrastinate when I'm the books that Beard's reading. I got Rich Dad, Poor Dad, listening to it, taking a road trip tomorrow to California to the Angels opener. And I'm going to listen, going to try to get on par. I want to get more business sense. And I think if you're tuned into business, I think you're going to be more inclined to do business oriented things like keeping daily track of your business. It just makes sense. It's like, and I'm guilty of this. I'm operating my business blind. I know, and I guess I can say I compare my numbers weekly. And when I say numbers, it's how much am I making? That is generally the guideline. I want to see what is my deposit into my account. And then for me, that translates over to, am I doing well? Am I not? And I think a spreadsheet would give me more accountability on that. So it's, we're maybe going to add a half an hour to an hour a day, depending on how much I list and how much I sell. But every business does it. Why am I not doing it? Big Dre says, hi, John. I dropped off my taxes with local tax place yesterday. They have good reviews, so hopefully they'll get it done right and quick. Most of them do. They have a little thing where they guarantee that if they don't get it right, they'll sit with you at your audit. I mean, let's hope that never happens. I think a very, very small percentage of folks get audited anyway, but it's always a good feeling to know that you have someone there if things go wrong. Roman, it'll take 24 hours is live. Yeah. Tommy says, I think Google Sheets can link to eBay, or they used to at least. That would be perfect for me. If I could find a way to extrapolate the data into my spreadsheets, I know I could probably use AI to develop code for a macro, but I don't know if it's that sophisticated. Rob something says, you could pull via API, but I couldn't get it to be reliable. I just work off the transaction report, have a macro that scrapes it to my database, takes about a minute. Tommy says, oh Lord, John is using Accrual. No wonder he hates taxes. No, I think I'm using cash. I'm not using Accrual because Accrual requires you to do every transaction. I'm just doing cash. So how much did I make gross in every place that I've sold, and how many expenses, what are my expenses for all these things? And that's deducted from that number. That's how TurboTax does it. So it's very, very easy. Bearded PokeTubers with us. Chastity says, I built a Google Sheet where I downloaded the CSV file every Sunday of sold items. Then I built a query that takes that data and creates a breakdown by income, shipping fees, and all. That is awesome. I wish I had half of your knowledge in building. I'm sure that was like Excel. I wish I had that knowledge base. And maybe with AI, I can have it helped me build something, but I'm just not that advanced. Rob Something says actually versus cash method, the cash method cap is 25 million in revenue. Now that's the cap or the minimum, because I believe 1 million was the min, right? Or can you use it at any time? Chastity, I have to manually enter my cost of goods into the Google Sheet. Not Funny says not your dad's CPA has some good videos on this, a couple / few ways to do it. And if I didn't have these tax programs, by the way, I think I'm going to pay like 200 something bucks when it's all said and done, because I'm using a Schedule C to file my taxes through TurboTax. Not sure what a CPA charges, to be honest with you, and maybe I should just foot the bill. But this year, at least, I am doing my own. Tonight, I'm doing my own. Anytime, Picker Roman, I will do my taxes during solar eclipse for good luck. And what happens if you do anything on Monday? Does it get screwed up? Tommy says, I'm just going to slide in under the cap. Camille Jones says, hey guys, I did my taxes late February and was supposed to get a refund electronically, but nothing has come. Should I be worried? Anyone experienced something similar? So there should be a way to track your refund. Don't know if you did it through a software or if you had someone do it, but there should be a way to track your refund status. Usually it's about 3 to 4 weeks for your refund, but this guy hasn't seen a refund in a while. Since I was working at my 9 to 5, did I ever see a refund? Mr. Sadie, I do the opposite. I claim all money out and all money in for the calendar year. Never had an issue, but I'm no expert. I pay someone to do my taxes. Yimuchi says, how many more listings do you get when you upgrade to a store? It depends on the size of the store. I'm not familiar with how many listings you get as a seller that has no store. I believe you get so many free based on category. Some categories you get free insertions, some you don't. I believe the basic store is 1,000 listings in a month. The next level above that is 10,000. Starter might be what? Is it 100? Maybe I'm wrong with that. But I would say if you have at least 100, go with the basic store. It's like $21.95 a month if you're paying monthly with a year contract or deal, and save the money. Let's see. PG says it depends on the level store you select. Basic gives you 1,000 listings. Tommy says, I'm confused. I think John is doing accrual, but thinks he's doing cash. Accrual is carrying inventory over, which is bad for us. Cash, it's all deducted as an expense at time of purchase. So when I'm doing my taxes, okay, I put all my cost of goods in TurboTax. And one of the last questions they ask me is, how much of this inventory do you have left over that has not sold? And that is, I'll put that number in. And that is what I've done every year. So am I not supposed to be doing that? You know, if I am not, for those of you guys who, I mean, none of us here has claimed to be a CPA. I'm sure there's some CPAs sitting back with their popcorn just laughing at this conversation. But for those of you who know better, if I'm using the cash method, am I supposed to be reporting what has not sold? Because I thought I was supposed to. Tactical Z says, hello, Mr. Moist. Yes, thanks for being here. Not Funny says, first year as a reseller, have an appointment with CPA Monday. I definitely feel like I need a professional to explain exactly how much I can write off. And that's the thing. For me, it's just TurboTax. It's kind of, it takes you through the whole thing, and you can click on an explanation as to what it's asking you, and then you become used to the whole thing. But yeah, I would recommend certainly a CPA. If you're not comfortable doing your own taxes, certainly don't do that, because that's stressful. When you're not understanding on how to do something, it's one of the worst things. Thomas, the CPA will know the magical percentage for every deduction that will trigger an audit. A good CPA is worth every penny. I do know that when I calculated this room plus my entire garage, it as a comparison with my overall square footage of this home, it said this could be a flag because your overall square footage is higher than the norm. And I'm kind of worried that I'm adding a third room, essentially the garage, this room, and my other room, which we use for shipping. Yeah, that's give me a flag for this room in the garage. I can just imagine. But again, knock on particle board, no audit. I did have a situation from 2019 where we had some payouts from leaving where we used to work with a forgot what they call it when they pay you out when you leave a company. I don't know, but we had a problem where we didn't get a W-2 form or a 1099 something, and we just didn't file with it. We filed, but we didn't include that. The IRS was right there saying, hey, we got this notification that you didn't file this amount, and it was $3,500 later that I had to pay out of pocket, like 2 years later. It was like not a letter you want to get in the mail. Roman says good CPAs actually know exactly how much stuff can be deducted and to prevent for going over certain numbers. Yeah, they have a lot of experience. A good CPA will have many people just like you that they're dealing with. John Worldwide Weber says, I got mixed up. I use cash accounting. My bad. Yeah. And that's what I thought I'm doing too. I believe that's what it's called on my side. Mr. Sadie, I wouldn't think of doing my own taxes after using a CPA. It costs very little unless you're a huge business with many employees. Venom says, John, do you use Reseller Genie or any reason that integrates with eBay? I don't want to pay $20 a month for that when I can enter my own items in a spreadsheet. How do you track your inventory and sales? So for me, you can go in like the inventory and sales. I downloaded the CSV file that you can get from eBay. I did it for both of my stores, and then you just sort the data and then get the totals. And that's kind of what I did. And you entering your totals in on the spreadsheet. Let's see. Devon says, I always operate my business blind. That's not the best practice, I can tell you that. Swamp Pickers has just sold a vintage t-shirt. There you go. I'm not sure if hitting the like button on this particular live help you, but yeah, and hit the like, guys, if you enjoy the tax conversation. I think and I want to know how many people are procrastinating like I am, that just waited until April before getting it done. Venom says, John, do you trust not your dad's CPA? I'm thinking of using him next tax season. I don't know him. I honestly don't. What does he charge? I'm curious. I know that the tax programs a lot of these people use, they have to pay for that. And then their time is worth something. So from what I heard, 500 is about the right number. If I can do the same thing and save $300, maybe I'm losing 2 hours of my day. And I guess you can argue I've lost a lot of hours in March, but I was going to have to get that data together anyway for the CPA. So I'm just losing 2 hours. I'm trading that for what, $200 to $300? I don't know. Venom says, John, my first year doing taxes for the eBay business since I just started in December 23. Used TurboTax. Lady was great, but definitely using not your dad's next year. He knows all the deductions. And are there any deductions that I'm missing? We talked about the size of your home office. We talked about your mileage. We talked about the cost of goods. Anybody out there know and I'm sure I'm missing some that I utilize that I'm just not. If you do something once every year, you tend to not remember everything. Joy says, a friend recommended it and they've used it for years. Definitely worth it. Rob Something says, I do my own taxes. I can't find a CPA for less than $2,500. I have several LLCs and rental properties. TurboTax cost me about $300 and hasn't let me down in 5+ years. And that's what I'm talking about. You can. That's one of the deductions too. The cost that you spend to do your taxes is also something that you can put in there. Let's see. Venom says, John, should I enter all my items into a spreadsheet even if they haven't sold yet? I sell video games. Not all my inventory is listed yet. Do I not type those unlisted games into spreadsheet? So to me, there's just a couple ways to do it. The way I initially set up my spreadsheet was everything I bought, boom, I put in the spreadsheet. And then when I've listed it, I hit yes, the macro pulls it over to the listed tab. And when that's sold, hit yes. And then all I'm doing is I'm just filling in the numbers. And then the numbers, it does the calculations to fill out the other boxes for, my final value fees, my promoted rates, my promoted fees, whatever I pay in promoted. It is data entry. And the more you add into that, the more time it's going to take. You could just go in and say, I'm just going to calculate, just go through all my solds, and you go through the sold tab or the order tab under Seller Hub, and go back and just look up view order details and take all the data from that. I wish I knew how to scrape that data. I think Rob something said that you can scrape the data, but I have no idea how to do it. Rob something says cash method, your cost of goods is taken at the time of purchase. Your carryover inventory and TurboTax would be zero. It's not an item by item accounting of COGS. So I've been doing it wrong all this time. And that being the case, I have learned something now in this live stream. If that's the case, that I need to knock that off, because I'm not trying to report. And you know what? Now that you say that, it makes so much sense. So if I buy $20,000 in goods throughout the year, and I haven't, 5,000 of that remains in my death pile, back stock, or just sitting on the shelf waiting to be sold, I've been deducting that, from the 20,000 essentially. But I've never counted that again when those items sold. So I've been screwing myself every year. Thank you for making that make sense. So if there's anything that I gain from doing this live stream, it's the knowledge that you guys give me. This is selfishly why I do this, because I want to learn. And I don't have all the information. Tommy says, I'd look into switching. Ask CPA. Cash doesn't report what hasn't sold. And that makes sense. It does. And so, that's awesome. Venom says, can you get an audit anytime, or am I safe once I've received my federal and state refund? You can get audited, I think, up to, is it 3 years or 7 years after you've done your taxes? Venom says, is it normal to never receive refunds again and always have a tax bill? I'm now in a new tax bracket since I make much more than ever. My parents never seen this type of money on a W-2. So every quarter, you're supposed to send over your approximate amount of taxes that you owe. Okay. And then if you pay too much as it relates to when you file, then that yields a refund. But if you're not paying anything on a quarterly basis, of course, it's going to be a huge tax bill when you file, but you're also going to get hit with a penalty for an underpayment penalty. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's enough to make you think about it. Mr. Sadie says inventory should be irrelevant when doing cash. I never had to disclose my inventory, but I would check on it for sure. And that's going to take time away. Not having to go through and account for everything sitting in my death pile, not counting everything sitting in my store. I say death pile, backstock. Not having to account for everything in my store is going to be huge as it relates to my tax bill. And it's also going to be huge for the time that is spent doing that. So thank you guys for making me, I should have come to this conclusion a long time ago, but if you're deducting your cost of goods from what you paid because you haven't sold it, well, when you do sell it, you should be counting that. But I have not been counting that. I've been counting just new cost of goods for that year. And so that was my confusion. Joy says you have 3 years to file any missed forms. I had that with the casino win. My tax lady said not to panic. There's a 3-year period to file. Yeah, you do. Don't know if you have to file an extension to avoid penalties. Overjoyed says, I have a house full of items from product reviews. Have no idea how to calculate it for business use. It started as a hobby before lockdown. Well, from what I understand, now I'm probably wrong on this, you get something for free. Is it zero? Is that your cost of goods on that item? Or does the government expect you to put the approximate value, retail value of that item when you get something for free? Venom says $500 plus for state plus Schedule C for not your dad. And thankfully, I'm in Nevada. We don't do state. So that's one task that we don't have to do that we used to have to do in California. Rob files an extension every year. Overjoyed says TurboTax isn't much cheaper, but for me, it's like $220. I am a sole proprietor. We do Schedule C, and I've never had to pay really any more than that. Not funny says my CPA is $400. He does more than one business, and so that might be worth it to have the knowledge that it's someone that's qualified is doing it, and it might be worth the extra couple $100. Something I need to look into after this year. I'm doing it myself tonight, but something I need to look into. Joyce says deduct your electric bill, phone bill, etc. Yes, it's like, so if this house, if my work area is like 40% of my home, then of my electric bill, essentially all my bills, it's tallying. That's one data point I didn't take. I didn't get all the bills. I didn't get all the bills together. So that's one thing I didn't do. But you're taking all your utility bills, the bills that relate to the business within your home, like your cable bill, you can't do that. Unless, some people might do it. I don't. But your gas, your electric, all the utilities that you would normally pay, if you could remove these rooms and have your own office setting, those expenses that pertain to the business, it's a percentage. At least that's what I understand that TurboTax is doing. Once you plug in those numbers, it's taking a percentage of those utility bills. Chastity says, I filed my taxes in February, used the COA the first year I started reselling, but have been filing myself for the last 5 years. And then Venom says, my struggle in doing my own spreadsheet is, do I list all my inventory in it, even if it's not listed in my eBay store yet? So no, well, in your spreadsheet, you're creating more work if you're listing all your unlisted inventory there, but it does give you a snapshot like, wow, I got all these items, maybe a kick in the butt. Like I need to get all this stuff listed, but you're creating work. I'd kind of much rather you just take that time and put a spreadsheet together of things that have sold and take that extra time you're saving and getting that stuff listed. Tommy says CPA gets to log into your software, have to give them hardly anything, but you have all your accounts, your, from your expenses, because that's another thing. You got to keep track of your expenses. How much do you spend on the different, like I bought a bunch of racks that are out in the garage. Those are 100% for the business. So these are things, I have my little deal here. If I'm going and I'm, parking for the business, when I went to ASD, Home Depot, buying parts for items that I buy, they're missing a couple screws. I go buy the screws, right? Even if it's a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, it adds up. This is this year's. This is, all this is last year, or what I'm reporting. Okay. When I went for the reseller rally, that's a YouTube expense, so that trip is written off. We did yard sales while we're out there. So it was technically a business trip. We filled up 2 suitcases full of stuff that we bought at the yard sale that we brought back. So there's a lot of expenses out there you can use. Ping G says, I use an enrolled agent and pay $300 for the federal and state returns. Overjoyed says, if I can declare all the space these items are used in my home, it would be over 70% like an episode of Hoarders. And provided you're not using those rooms for, if you're stacking up merchandise in your living room, right? Because you're using that living room for personal use, you can't count it as a business space. So we're using only the rooms that are 100% for business. So I'm only in this room when I'm doing YouTube and when I'm working. Tommy says there's a limit on every deduction that will trigger an audit. Overjoyed, have to be careful. And I think 70% would raise some eyebrows. Venom says, how can I connect with you, John, to get my spreadsheet to be set up like yours? Macro, how do I get one like yours? Can we connect via email? Or how can I get my sheet to be like what you just described? Well, I mean, you can contact me at flippinain'teasy2020@gmail.com. I mean, I could send you what I have, but I mean, it's very raw. It's not polished at all. And, you know, it involves a macro, and those tend to get kind of finicky. And the one I set up took me months to make, and I got it finally functional just to move data. Let's see. Yeah, you can also get it on ChatGPT too. Go into ChatGPT, create me a macro, but you have to know how to utilize the macro, how to set up a macro. Overjoyed says, I have no idea what the limit is. It's the vast majority of space in my home, easily over 50% and stacked. But again, from my understanding, it has to be space that's exclusive to the business. Then there are shipping materials. Yeah, all that stuff that you store. But if you're, you know, storing it next to your TV that you watch, you know, you can't. I mean, if you're watching like personal time, you can't do that. Tommy says, yeah, that's why you hate taxes, because you're probably overpaying like $10,000 a year. Oh, no, not that much a year. I'm pretty good with my deductions, but it is, I'm sure that we're now talking the last 5 years, probably thousands of dollars. And it makes me want to go in and maybe file a revision. But does that flag an audit if you revise your taxes to give you some money? Mr. Sadie says, I used to claim a percentage of my home and home bills for reselling biz. They used to allow so much square foot, but laws changed so much, I don't know anymore. But the thing that's good about like a program like TurboTax, they're going to tell you, like, look, the law says you're only capped at this much. There's been many times I've come across like little error messages like that, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, I didn't know that. Tommy says there's a percentage we can claim. I don't know what the limits are. That's what the smart people are for. Yeah, well, the smart people that wrote those programs I'm relying on. Big Dre says I screwed up 5 years ago using TurboTax, and it cost me $5,000. Ever since then, I've had some $799. Sure, you meant CPA. Venom says I'm not paying anything every quarter, but they take federal taxes from me every paycheck. You don't have to make quarterly payments. That's an option on the W-4. It's helpful to make extra payments. But that's with your, and it sounds like you're doing the reselling part-time. You have a job where they're taking taxes out every paycheck, and then they send it into the government. But when you're running your own business, and again, a lot of us think of this as like a side thing, a hobby. We're selling it on the side. But the moment you sell your first item, the government looks at you as a business, and you're supposed to be sending in money quarterly through the government based on how much you expect to pay in taxes off of that amount. So, you know, is it 15%, 20%, depending on what that is? But you send that in, and then they give you credit for that payment. And then when you do your taxes, then it's offset by your deductions and all that. Thomas says, now you need to go back and amend the last 3 years to get the overpayment back, John, then throw a big party and hire Roman to dance. Yes, I will look into that. I just don't want to be flagged. I mean, look, who does? I mean, I keep a drawer, and I went through my filing cabinet here, and this thing had stuff in it from years, like things I didn't even need. So I went through the filing cabinet, made room, have extra files now that I can use, but I just don't want to be in that position where, you know, someone's knocking at my door or whatever and saying, hey, we need to sit with you and go over all these numbers. It's like, what a nightmare that is. Venom says, I did cash method with TurboTax full service, and she asked my how much the inventory is that carries over. Now your dad said it too, so I think you still have to report the inventory to carry over. But where do you report that inventory when it's sold? So that's the question. So I'm finding that there's the last 5 years at least, I'm putting in that number, and I'm never inputting that number again, and I'm never getting credit for those sales. So Very, very interesting. Joy says no penalties if it's under that 3-year for not adding that item. Mucci says, how much is CPA roughly? Anyone have an idea? Well, I think like $500 at minimum. And you don't really want to get someone that just starting, I don't think. They're probably not going to have the experience that you want. Tommy says, depends on CPA. Like it's like McDonald's or a 5-star restaurant. You get what you pay for. Yep. And then Overjoy says, TurboTax screwed me a few years ago. I need a CPA to untangle it. Yeah, it can get quite interesting, especially if you move like halfway through the year, then it's going to really be difficult. Big Dre says, I screwed up my taxes 5 years ago. I think we talked about that. Mr. Sadie says, John, I pay about $400. It includes my reselling plus 2 W-2s for my wife and myself. You'll sleep better at night, brother. Yeah. Next year, though, we'll do it next year. I'm taking on a lot more business off of eBay. And we're not talking YouTube. YouTube represents a very small amount of my income. And I don't really ever see that changing with YouTube. I'm taking on more business. And this sort of is like brokering like deals with companies, buying merchandise, reselling it, that kind of thing in bulk. Big Dre. Customer service went down. Also stopped answering the phones. Had to find a new place. Probably talking about TurboTax there. Devon says John has an old school receipt holder, restaurant style. Yeah, I mean sometimes you have these. Yeah, it could look. I could go in and comb my digital records, right? My sort of like my checking account, my credit cards, but you're going to miss some things. So I'd rather have the receipt here to then say, oh, okay, match it up. Did I count it already? No. Okay, put it in the spreadsheet. Thomas says, yeah, so QuickBooks or whatever attaches to business accounts, eBay, credit cards, CPA can log in and send them weekly, monthly emails with the data. Only has to tell them about cash deals usually. Okay. Let's see. We're getting kind of close to the end here. Yamuchi says, internet bill is part of the business. Anybody? Now, I don't have cable, but internet bill is part of the business because you're using that you're using that data, that service to run your business. Big Dre says my phone is broken and it messed up my comment. Gonna have to get a new phone soon. Good thing I have a phone insurance. Yeah, get that phone insurance. Use it if you have it. I don't use phone insurance. My phone insurance is buying a good quality case and screen protector for this thing. Venom says, John, I don't normally keep track of mileage to USPS to drop my packages off, but I just use the exact miles. It's for my apartment. That works too, right? Yeah, it works. But, okay, so you calculated at 2 miles, but in reality, it's 2.6. And let's say you go every day. So let's say 200 days in a year when it's time to take your items to the post office. Well, that 0.6 is not being counted at all times 200. So you're really losing out, I believe, on not having a service that only costs like $60. And now here I am talking about, hey, it only costs this much, but I ain't willing to pay for a CPA. So take that with a grain of salt. Overjoyed says, are you selling as an LLC, S Corp, just a sole proprietor? I'm dealing with taxes, much less for more than just myself. I am a sole proprietor. I need, and I guess it's not necessary. I mean, I was looking at the idea of doing the LLC, but I just haven't done it. Again, procrastinating, expenses. I am that way. I mean, and maybe that's why I succeed so well at buying things to resell, because I'm very frugal. I don't want to overspend on something. I may feel like, oh, this is a great thing to buy, but I'm not overpaying for it. So it's being frugal really kind of bites you in the butt sometimes. Venom says, I don't normally keep track of mileage to USPS to drop my packages off. I just use the exact mileage. I think I read that. Venom says, every trip I make, just use the 12 miles for each trip, 6 miles there, but it could be 12.2. And that 0.2 you're losing every time. Thomas says, file IRS form 3115, application for change in accounting method included in TurboTax business. But I recall stating that I'm using the cash method. So why is it asking me to put an amount for unsold goods in there, and I'm never putting that amount just don't know how to account for it. Then it says, if you sold food on eBay or more liability type items that I would do at LLC. If I sell video games, ain't no one choking on discs, so I'm fine. A sole proprietor. Okay. Swamp Pickers and LLC. Garden Resale Thrift says, I like Reseller Genie. They finally a website, and I can put my mileage, and found out home to USPS and back home is 18.4 miles. And see, if you had just reported 18 miles, you're losing 0.4 miles every time you do that trip. And so it's always a good, yeah, I did notice I froze. I'm trying to look at the camera, so I'm not seeing the monitor. Hopefully I'm back okay for you guys. Overjoy says, I don't want to worry about corporate forms filing, and I would also love an issue with running a biz out of my condo. The info is public. Mr. Sadie, I'm a sole proprietor, but I sell part-time and only claim once per year. But if I was a larger full-time, I would get the LLC and file quarterly. I guess I need to do that. Venom says, IRS got them, boys. No, they didn't shut me down. Tommy says, okay, just verify you're on cash. If so, then what Rob something said will probably work. I just verify with it's for my own headspace. Yeah, I think so. Callie Deb says, hi, everyone. Didn't realize you were on, John. Yeah, we just went live just to talk about the journey I'm about to embark on here in a few minutes. And I will, I'll report on, if it went well. If you see me on Monday with a very sad face, it tells you I got taxed more than I thought. And if you see me with a big smile and a really good mood, then, the opposite happens. So want to thank, we had quite a few people. I wasn't counting on having over 100 like we usually do on our Monday and Friday lives. But I think this is a really good topic. And thankfully, the folks, you guys showed up and gave me some good information that I just would not have thought of myself if I didn't go live. So thank you for saving me some money. And thank you for being a part of this conversation. Doing your taxes, whether you have a CPA do it, or if you're trying to struggle through it yourself, it's something you have to do every year. And it's yet another reason why flipping ain't easy. And I want you guys to have an excellent weekend. You probably will not hear back from me until Monday when we go live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a great day, guys. Take care.